So good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast's Sunday morning celebration. If there's anybody watching this morning or any other time during this week that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you are welcome here. To begin our service this morning, Reverend Jenna Watkins is going to open us with a prayer, and then one of our congregants, Carol Gabika, is going to honor us with a sacred reading. So, Reverend Jenna.
Thank you. So let's just take a moment to center ourselves, maybe closing our eyes, getting comfortable in our chairs. And let us take this time to dwell in the heart of the infinite, that infinite presence who breathes itself into each and every one of us and calls us good, calls us loved, calls us whole, complete, perfect, calls us abundant. As we reside in the heart of spirit, feeling and recognizing that we are all of these things, we bring this awareness back into our lives, allowing them to unfold with all this love and goodness into our daily actions, our daily thoughts, our daily interactions with all we meet. I give thanks this morning for Reverend Dr. Ron and for Becky Fox, who make this morning happen. I give thanks for Ron's wisdom, his energy, his laughter, his kindness, his deep, deep heart. And I know that as we come together today, we are going to be guided to hear something that speaks to our goodness, something that speaks to our heart, that allows us to open up more deeply to the wonderful gifts of spirit, waiting for us to reach out and accept with gratitude. For it is with gratitude that we are able to receive these beautiful gifts. And it is with gratitude that I am thankful that you are all here today, whether on video or here during this session. I give thanks for your loving presence, your kindness, the community we've created. It is a place of spirit, a place of love, and a place of goodness. And I give thanks for all of this. And so it is.
I remember as a little girl, the yellow magazine with pictures from all over the world. My mom paid for it by saving money from her house allowance. We turned the pages together and saw visions of the vast world, huts and igloos, caves and mansions, smiling women showing their mouths empty of teeth, stirring a pot over an open fire, showing off their 3 goats. All over the world, faces alit with smiles, celebrating the ability to share their pride, their happiness, holding each other together, sharing what counts. Abundance of love in war, in peace, in pestilence, abundance of spirit between the yellow magazine covers. As I open the yellow cover of my life, I thank God for the ping of a text from a friend, the squirrels entertaining my cat, the neighbor bringing my garbage can, the flowers shaking off the winter cold. I see the title of my story under the yellow cover, Abundance.
Wow, thank you so much, Carol. That was really wonderful. So this morning, I want to speak about abundance and prosperity, and I titled the message, Abundance as a Way of Life. But as I started to go into my research, I thought, it would really be interesting to almost do what we called in college a survey course, to just share what some of the new thought thinkers and writers from today's writings, today's age to the beginnings, what they wrote about abundance and prosperity. And basically, to give away the end, we teach that abundance is a choice. It's not about what you possess, but rather about what you think. So ask yourself, you can ask yourself as you listen to this, what do you think about? Because whatever your belief system is what creates your reality. And the late Unity minister, Eric Butterworth, wrote that you and I are human magnets. I really like that. Human magnets. He said, we draw to us the people, the things, and the circumstances that match our thinking. He said, prosperity is not just about things, it's about the consciousness that attracts things. And let me give you a quote. He wrote, prosperity is a way of living and thinking and not just money and things. Poverty is a way of living and thinking and not just a lack of things. It's abundance is a state of mind. Ernest Holmes, who founded the Centers for Spiritual Living, wrote, if one wishes to demonstrate prosperity, he must first have a consciousness of prosperity. We can have a large bank account and still feel like we're really poor. So I let me demonstrate that. In my book that I wrote this year, Experience the Beacon Within, I tell a story about the time when I was in graduate school studying for my MBA. And one of my buddies came to school early and he said, let's go grab a cup of coffee. I want to tell you something. And what he wanted to tell me was he had taken a cab that day. He and another gentleman, had hailed a cab at the same time, and they were both coming to Lower Manhattan, so they decided to share it. And the other fellow was telling my student how he was a senior executive at a company in Midtown Manhattan. And the entire ride to Lower Manhattan, he told him he made $50,000 a year, but that he had so many bills, he always felt broke. He said, I have never felt so poor in my entire life. And I have to tell you, in those days, $50,000 was a big salary. It was a lot of money. And so after he got done telling me the story, my friend said to me, he said, hey, Ron, how could you possibly earn that much money and still feel poor? And in all honesty, when I wrote it, and now I don't remember what I said, what my answer was, but I think I know what it is now. Abundance is a state of mind. And so you can have that large bank account. You still can make that great salary and still feel poor. Ernest Holmes said, if we think poverty and lack, we're certainly creating them and causing them to be demonstrated in our experience. So let me tell you another personal story. Years ago, when I was doing corporate life, my job was eliminated. And I was really concerned, really worried about our financial future. And I was taking a long ride one day in my car, hours alone, and I put a Wayne Dyer tape in. And I want to share with you a couple of things Wayne Dyer said. One of the things he said was, if you're the type of person that always paid your bills, you always will. And if you're the type of person that never pays your bills, you probably never will. And it gave me a lot of comfort. I know it might sound strange, but I knew whatever it was, I was fiscally responsible. I was the kind of person that paid my bills and had the mindset I would. And so hearing that brought me comfort. But he also said on this tape, he said, abundance is not something you acquire. It's something you tune into. That abundance is all around us. And all we need to do is to open ourselves to it. You know, even in the worst of times, even in the Depression of 1929, there were a lot of people that didn't do well, I know, but there were people that did do well, people that did more than survive. So one of the really terrific books that I've read recently on abundance is by Dennis Merritt Jones, and it's titled The Art of Abundance. And in the book, Dennis says that what we seek, what most of us seek, is a life of peaceful satisfaction. And he said that world of peaceful satisfaction is open to people that have the eyes to see it and the faith to claim it. And he also wrote that so many of us don't believe that there's enough. And the reason that so many of us believe that is because we believe in the illusion that we're separate from our source. And that when that's what we believe, when we believe we're separate from spirit, that we believe there's not enough. And Michael Beckwith wrote that the truth is there's more than enough. There's more than enough to go around. There's more than enough creative ideas. There's more than enough power. There's more than enough love. There's more than enough joy. There's enough of everything for everyone. Let me read you a quote. He said, if you believe it, if you can see it, if you can act from it, it will show up for you. Christian Larson was a contemporary of Ernest Holmes. And one of the books he wrote is titled The Pathway of Roses. And in the book, in a section of it, Christian talks about abundance. And he says, the real element of possession lies in our consciousness. He said, what we possess in consciousness. What we possess in consciousness. And he said, and what we possess in consciousness will gain in our everyday real life. And the secret to gaining more is to consciously feel that you have more. And whatever it is you desire, because when we talk about abundance, we're not just talking about money. So he said, whatever it is that you desire, whether it's life, whether it's health, whether it's power, whether it's wisdom, whether it's spirituality, whether it's greater abundance, train your consciousness to believe you have it, and don't judge Don't judge by appearance, because the purpose of life is to live more life. The purpose of life is to live more life. When I was in the School of Ministry, one of the New Thought teachers that we read a lot was Joel Goldsmith. And in one of his books, he says, day after day, we're faced with the same question. And the question is, what have we? What have we? And he says the answer to that question is, I have all that God has. I have all that God has because my Father and I are one. So I already have all that God has because of I have oneness with the divine presence. And in the margin, I wrote, that's tough to remember sometimes because it is for all of us, it's tough. But the message he was giving us, the message he was sending was don't look outside ourselves for good, but look upon ourselves as the center from which God is flowing. And all we need to do is put ourselves in that flow. Because, God is always flowing. And if we're outside the flow, God isn't the one that moved. It's you and I that have moved. So one of our contemporary writers that I'm sure we're all familiar with is Deepak Chopra. And Deepak writes about abundance too. And he said, we need to allow time for our spiritual practice every day as a way to get our priorities straight, because spiritual life is the best way to achieve any success. Our world is construed in consciousness. So there's that word again, consciousness. Our world is construed in consciousness. And we need, if things are tough, we need to see life from a new perspective. How do we do that? He said, by identifying with our inner world rather than our objective world out there. By seeing ourselves as conscious creators, as the creator of our daily reality, our day by day reality. And by measuring our success as how we're purposely or personally evolving rather than by externals. So how are we growing spiritually? And when we're growing spiritually, we're going to be growing in abundance and in prosperity of all kinds. Another one of our present day writers on many topics, but on abundance, is Jonathan Robinson. And Beck and I have had Jonathan Robinson come speak at several of our churches. And in one of his books, he talks about money. And he says, what money brings us depends on how we use it. And he said, if you got a sum of money, you can go out and buy an ounce of cocaine and blow your mind. Or you can take a spiritual workshop. He said, it manifests what we consider to be meaningful, what we consider to be important. And he suggests an exercise that we can take. And I did this exercise many years ago, and it's really interesting. He said, take some time and imagine what it would be like to manifest a tremendous amount of money in your life. What would it be like to manifest a tremendous amount of money in your life? How would your life change? And he said, for some people, it might mean freedom. For some, it might mean generosity. For some, it might mean peace of mind. And for some, it might mean going on a wild shopping spree. But he said, take some time and write down what's important to you, and then write down how having a lot of money would help you move forward with those things that you really value. So I want to share with you a story that I've shared this story before, but I haven't shared it in a while. And it's a story about Becky and I and our finances and belief. And so years ago, when we were in Arizona, one Sunday morning, as we were driving to church, Becky said to me, and by the way, Becky is the one that handles our finances and our checkbook. And Becky said to me, you know, this is going to be a tough month for us. I think our expenses are more than our income, and we're going to have to think about how to handle that. And I said to Beck, you know, we're on our way to church. I need to give a talk now. So can we talk about this later? And she said, sure. But on the way, we did say, while we didn't speak about the specifics, we did say, look, what we believe in is that our abundance is all around us. And we were talking about how we knew it would be okay. We get to church, and a fellow named John comes up to me and says, hey, Ron, my stepdad died this week, and we would like to have some kind of service next weekend. Do you think you could do it? And I said, John, I am not going to be here next weekend. I'm going to a CSL meeting out of town, but maybe one of our practitioners could do it. And I said, let me ask Becky. So I went and asked Becky, who had never done a memorial service. And she said, yeah, I'd like to do it. So John, his mother, Becky, and I go in my office. And John's mother says, you know, my husband died. And what I would really like, Becky, if you would come to my house and do some kind of service. It could be very simple and easy. It's really, we have 7 grandchildren and they love their granddad. Could you do something for them? I want you to bring comfort to all of us, but it's specifically to them. And Becky, I could see her light up. She said, yeah, I would love to do that. And then John's mom, I don't remember her name, she said, so Becky, how much will you charge us? And Becky said, you know, whatever you think is okay. Whatever you choose to give me will be fine with me. And then John's mom said, when would you like to get paid? Now, after? And again, Becky said, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm okay with. And John's mom said, you know, I've got my checkbook here. Let me write you a check. So she writes out a check, folds it up, hands it to Becky, and we all hug and they leave. And Curious George here says to Becky, how much she give you? Becky opens it up, $500. Our money woes for that month were cured. And I turned to Becky and I said, oh my God, it's your first memorial service. I've done a bunch of them. I've never gotten $500 from a memorial service. And we both laughed. And I said, you know, facetiously, Becky, if I thought I could get $500 every time I did a memorial service, I'd be out killing people. But the serious point is, we had the belief to look beyond appearances, that our abundance was all around us. And because we were one with spirit, our good would manifest for us and to us. So I want to finish up with just a couple of more things. I read an article this week by a gentleman named Reverend Dr. Carl Gregg. And it was an article about gratitude. And one of the things he wrote about was noticing. And he said he had a friend who was a college professor who had a young daughter. And as she was growing a little older, you know, children separate. And so she was starting preschool and their relationship changed a little bit. And when she would come home and he would see her from preschool, he would say to her, "So what did you all do today?" And and he would get a list of activities. It wasn't what he wanted. And so he thought about it and he began to ask his daughter, "What did you notice today?" And when he asked her, "What did you notice?" he found out more about what was going on in her world. It drew them closer together. So I would like to ask you all the question, what do you notice in your daily life and why? Because when we notice, and this was his point, when we notice the world around us, that keeps us in a positive mode. Because think about this, it's really, really hard to go through life and noticing the beauty that's all around us and not be filled with awe. So yesterday, when I finished preparing this entire message, I went on Facebook, and one of my Facebook friends, who's a real life friend, Reverend Candace Beckett, had put this question on her Facebook page. Other than happiness, what else can money not buy? Other than happiness, what else can money not buy? And I want to share with you all of the responses that I saw right up until yesterday evening. Friends, respect, health, love, humor, trust, peace of mind, integrity, life, intelligence, empathy, a gentle breeze, connection with spirit, satisfaction, time, confidence, almost everything that's really important. And doesn't that sum it up? Almost everything that's really important. Think about that. God bless you. Thank you for being here and have a wonderful week.